Good evening, my beautiful bar rats. It is March 5th, Ash Wednesday to y'all, and I hope you are having a wonderful and productive start to your Lent. To my Catholic friends, everybody else, good evening. This is Rickcast, and we are here to talk about things on the internet because that's really all we have to do nowadays. And I am happy that you are here. If you like what we do throughout the show, do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell so you can be let known, for lack of a better term, when this show goes to air. If you have a comment at all during the show, please do not be afraid to drop it in the comment section wherever you are, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, X, or Rumble. Let me know what you guys are thinking. It makes the show so much better. So we have an eventful night because I made the choice yesterday to watch Daredevil Reborn 1 and 2 so I could review it instead of watching the joint session because it's not a State of the Union because Trump was only in office for 6 weeks. Look, if you want to talk about it, and I'll get into it more, the political theater and the red meat and the worship of Trump that is taking place right now, go ahead. If that's your bag, I think it's fantastic. Nothing was accomplished last night except more political theater. People will tell you it's the greatest speech ever. It's going to rally Americans, blah, blah, blah. But I don't really think so. But we will cover it and we will talk about it, and we'll get to that soon. I have one hot take for you. It's just a poll that came out. There's a bunch of other things that kind of have come about. It's a story about Hamilton canceling their Kennedy Center performance, which I don't care. I think Hamilton's an overrated musical anyway, and I don't really want to give it the time of day. Just a lot of these other things that are going on for news-wise, but we're going to get to them right now. Here on Rickcast. So let's just jump into it and let me know what you guys are thinking in the comment section down below. So let's get to our first story. It's our only hot take of the night here on this Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. And I believe this is representative of a trend that we will continue to see throughout the coming years. And if you can't see it, it is from Newswire. Support for same-sex marriage in the U.S. has dropped from 52% it's dropped to 52%. Opposition is at 36%. And this is from YouGov, which is essentially just a volunteer website. It's just a site that you log into and punch up your opinions and so forth. So it's not. This is more of a youth poll than anything else. And with conservatives and especially Catholics and Christians having more babies than the left, you're going to see a decisive right swing in the next 10 to 15 years, especially if immigration, if the Trump administration and then maybe JD Vance or whoever comes after him, if it's a Republican, can hold down the immigration numbers for a good 12 years, you'll see a shift in the right and in the overall voting base, and these things that the left has been trying to do for a long time, same-sex marriage, abortion, all their talking points are going to go out the window. Of course, there's a lot of things that have to hold on this. Catholics and Christians can need to continue to have more than one baby. I think their birth above death rate, I think, is 1.7% versus liberals, which is like 1.2 or 1.3. Either way, there are more conservative religious-based children than non. And so as long as the trends continue to hold, you'll see more things that the left has cherished be tossed to the wayside just because that's the way things go. The era of progressivism could truly be over within the next 20 years, 20, 30, maybe 50 years, 20 maybe too soon, 50 years if the trends hold. And meaning immigration being enforced and more conservatives and Catholics and Christians having children. The typical number that you'd like to see is around at least 3, because the idea is 1 replaces you, 2 replaces your neighbor, and then 3 replaces everybody, and then 3 plus. So that's why the emphasis is on having babies. So all you all you families out there, get to cracking. And so that's what we see with this poll, and we'll see it with other liberal areas as well. Here's the thing: as long as you have a rise in homeschooling, you do live up to your name in that in this comment, which I love, Crouch the Elder. If you homeschool and you start to see, here's a very interesting point. Let me bring this up, Crouch the Elder. I think your points are valid. Look at football athletes. Look at college football in the national title game. You had Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Ohio State was actually known for a segment of the players on the team who were so faith-based that they actually had a club that they would go around and preach and proselytize. And then, of course, Notre Dame as well. You had Riley, the quarterback. He was talking about how his relationship with our Lord and Savior as well. You're starting to see in football, at least, more athletes wearing, or there was a baseball prospect that showed up to his first day at camp. And what is he wearing? He's wearing a shirt that says Jesus won. I think with the rise of homeschooling, the rise of these institutions, you're going to see a pushback. You already see the war on feminism is pretty rampant at this point. The pushback against the sexual liberation theology is being pushed back against as well. Yeah, I mean, you could throw that out there, but at the same time, that's one poll. I'd like to see the metadata on that as well. If they grow up in a religious household, it also depends on the religion as well. Catholics usually, Catholics are just as bad, but you're seeing a resurgence and things like that as well. My YouTubers are particularly salty tonight, and I'm not up to the task of debating you guys. No, I'm not in the best fighting shape. So you guys may be right. I will not be positive in that regard. We are all doomed. Next topic. Next topic, because you guys are probably right. So let's go to Trump's address to Congress. In case you missed it, here's a couple-minute highlight.
But I know this group is going to be voting for the tax. I'm calling for no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our great seniors.
Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session. Go.
What were you shouting to the president, sir?
muted. Now that I'm unmuted, I can continue my statements. As I was talking about in the intro a couple minutes ago, and this was a red meat showcase. This is political theater on both sides. The left came in with their pre-printed signs, and they were going to just protest and walk out at a prearranged time. It didn't matter what Donald Trump was going to say. The right was going to freak out and say how great everything was, and saying this, that, and the other thing. And the people on the right are saying it's the greatest speech in the history of speeches, and America is so back, and this is amazing. And guys, if you're into that kind of stuff, I'm not going to hate on you. But for me personally, this is absolutely nothing. It's another base speech. And so we can all argue about that, but let's take a look here at the polls on Trump's 2025 joint address to Congress, finding large majority of viewers approve of it. And this is CBS News. This is not Fox. This is not OAN. This is not Breitbart. A large majority of speech watchers approved of what they heard from President Trump's joint address to Congress on Tuesday night. The viewership was heavily Republican. Historically, a presidential party draws more of their own partisans. Now, of course, they had to do that. This was no exception, and they liked what they heard, with 76% approving and 23% disapproving. Time Trump spent on issues you cared about, 63% said a lot, 28% said a little. So that's an overwhelming majority. I love how they split that up in polls. Because if you don't, then that's overwhelmingly a majority. That's pretty much 91%. And, you know, they're like, oh, well, you didn't like it. And it's like, okay, well, whatever. Party identifiers of speech watchers, 51% Republicans, 27% independents, and 20% Democrats. How the speech made you feel? Hopeful, proud, worried, angry. More people felt hopeful and proud, obviously, because if you're going to be more of a Republican base, then you would find all of it. And so it is what it is. Steph, I know you're upset. It was a tough night for you. I get it. So you're allowed to feel angry. In the speech, Trump was presidential, entertaining, aspiring, unifying, divisive. You know, you tune into a Trump speech to be entertained, right? That's what you do. And that's kind of what happened. I know G Money in our chat. I'm sorry. I thought I promised you an address on high beer prices. It did not happen. So I'm 0 for 2 tonight, and I apologize for that. But it is what it is in that regard. People felt he had a clear plan of action. So the people who watched it, it reinforces the pushback against the popular meme the left has been trying to push out over the last couple of days. Is this what you voted for? Is this what you voted for? Oh, Trump voters are they're regretting their vote. Well, clearly they're not. And clearly this is what they voted for. And it's not a shock 6 weeks into his administration that people are pleased with what is happening. And so it is what it is. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Every other channel, every other conservative channel has beaten this topic to death. And I get it. You want to spike the football. You want to spike the political football. You go ahead and do it. But you let me know what you thought about the speech. Did you watch it? I know I didn't. And I'm really, I'm not upset that I did. I wasn't going to live stream it just because. I will say I do agree with Crotchety here that all the Dems have to do, and this was kind of said in 2016 and beyond, if Democrats just kind of acted normal, they would be fine. But they find ways to act more and more like petulant children to contrast themselves with Trump. You know, they think Trump acts childish, and then they do things like they come out with paddles like they're sitting at an auction. All they literally have to do is just all right. Steph, how come, you know what? Those federal workers didn't give a rip about you, me, or anybody else in 2020 when we all lost our jobs. Those federal workers didn't give a rip in 2008 when people were being thrown out of their homes. Those federal workers don't ever give a rip about anybody but themselves. Nobody gives a crap about federal workers. Do you know why, Steph? And I'm not getting mad at you. Because federal workers don't give a crap about anybody outside of their little bubble in Washington, D.C. None of them do. They never have. You're nothing but a number, and they drain every single drop of money from you. They squeeze you. They overtax you. They burden you, and they love it. They do it with a smile every single day. When you need something done, they put it in a form, and they put it on hold. And then when you need it done, they say, oh, well, you got to refill that form out. Yeah, well, you know what? I don't really care, because those people are not supporting families with legit jobs. They're laptop jobs. Most of them are duplicate jobs, and they get paid way too much money. And they don't give a crap about us. I'm sorry if you and I can disagree on that, but this idea that they're just salt of the earth people, they're not. They live different lives because they, up until now, were protected. They were protected because they are part of the bureaucracy that seeks to choke your life out with regulations and taxes. And so it's just one of these things. And I don't mean to get mad at you, Stephanie. It's just the last people on planet Earth you should defend are federal workers. Because when you need money, when you need help, when you need something done, and I'll give you a best example, FEMA. What did we see with FEMA in California, in South Carolina, or in the Carolinas? People are literally begging for help and food, and they roll in 5 days later, take up all the hotel rooms, and tell people to fill this form out, and they'll get to them in 4 to 6 weeks. And you know what those federal workers do that you care so much about? They go back to their homes. They go back to their beds. They go back to their air-conditioned rooms. They don't give a crap about you. And so it's one of those things that Trump going after federal workers. And you know what, Steph? You may like the next story, because we're going to talk about how SCOTUS with Amy Coney Barrett has ordered Trump that he has to pay the USAID money out. So, you know, you may enjoy that story because it's kind of a comeuppance to Trump and some people. But the idea that we have to worry about these people who literally do not produce anything. They don't produce anything. They drain the system. The federal government does not produce anything. The federal government exists to take your money. The federal government exists to be a stopgap for you to do things. It's that simple. The federal government is the reason why you have directions on shampoo bottles. Because it has to be there, because it's a safety concern, because everybody needs to know how to use shampoo bottles. The federal government is the reason why you have a calorie counter on water. Because everybody needs to know the calories of water. So obviously not a huge fan of federal workers here. So that is that. Yeah, I'm a little tired. I guess I'm a little agitated in this Ash Wednesday. Spiritual warfare and such. But yes, Trump, if you love Trump, you love speech last night. So if you like Trump, you love last night's speech. If you don't like Trump, you didn't like last night's speech. That's pretty much how I can sum it up for y'all. All right, let's move on to our next story. I'm sure our liberal will enjoy this story. The Supreme Court upholds a lower court order forcing USAID to pay contractors.
Coming in from the Supreme Court, I want to get straight over to CNN's Caitlin Polans, who's pulling together the details from us. And this has to do with President Trump's moves to freeze foreign aid. Caitlin, what's happened?
Yeah, Kate, what had happened in the Trump administration is they turned off money going to nonprofits and contractors.
By the way, I'm convinced this person is a man.
foreign aid, people that were working with the organization USAID, the agency that the Trump administration was trying to shut down. And what the Supreme Court, what Trump wanted to do is he wanted a green light from the Supreme Court to keep that money shut off. It's being litigated at the trial level courts far below the Supreme Court. And what the Supreme Court just said is, we're not going to do that. We need the lower court to figure this out.
Which here's how the Supreme Court works. Here's how the Supreme Court works. You have your liberal justices, and then you have Gorsuch, Alito, and then of course the great Clarence Thomas. Then you have Kavanaugh, who's a little bit of a wet rag, but he tends to go conservative. And then you have ACB, and you have John Roberts. Now, I've explained multiple times that John Roberts' only concern is the first paragraph of his obituary. And he is so desperate to have his first paragraph say, John Roberts, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, known to keep his court neutral in times of massive political affair. He is desperate to keep the court opinion as neutral, because if it was a liberal Chief Justice, they would be so left wing, it wouldn't even be funny, and they would wear it with a badge. Roberts is the antithesis of the old school way Republican thinks, well, we don't want to do it because if the left gets in power, then they'll do it, even though when the left gets in power, they're going to do it anyway. So he is the feckless, spineless leader of the Supreme Court. Of course, thank you, George W. Bush, for him. And then you have ACB, who is the result of what happens when you choose a person for a position based on trying to appease a market. And ACB was picked to appease suburban moms. If you think that I'm being harsh in that regard, just understand that there's no way that Trump could have gotten, he was thinking of re-election. And if he had put a third man on the court, he would have been badgered from pillar to post as a sexist, misogynist, pretty much all the things they say about him already. So he felt he needed a female to help offset that. Now, there were better female judge candidates. There's one out of Florida. I forget her name, but she was very conservative. She's not the one that overturned all the COVID stuff. She was a different one, but she was out there. Amy Coney Barrett was looked at kind of like Kavanaugh, like a safe Midwestern conservative kind of judge that will, there's two reasons. One, they picked her because she was a woman and they thought that would poll better. And the second thing is, after the Kavanaugh debacle, right? After the Kavanaugh debacle, he was looking for somebody that could sail through much easier than what happened to Kavanaugh, right? The Kavanaugh thing really did hinder Kavanaugh for a while because he has PTSD from going through that, and it hindered, and it really kind of gave the yips to the Trump administration as far as trying to pick more bombastic. And Kavanaugh wasn't even that bombastic of a candidate either. He was very middle of the road as well. So Barrett was a safe bet. She came from the Midwest. She had a solid record. She didn't have anything controversial. She was a mom. She was a dedicated wife and mom. She taught at Notre Dame. She had a really good track record. And so that's why I believe she was picked, because she would sail through a lot easier than somebody like a Clarence Thomas or an Alito or somebody that's more fundamental when it comes to the Constitution. And it's very interesting. The court is kind of getting tired of her already. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Maybe I do. So this is from Chief Justice, not Chief Justice. This is from Scalia, not Scalia. Is it from Scalia? No, it's from Alito. I don't know what I'm doing. And I say that often, so it's not. So this was Alito's dissenting opinion. Justice Alito, along with Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh. So when you have Kavanaugh on here too, that shows you how everybody is kind of just sitting here going, I'm sorry, what? How are you feeling that this is something that should be litigated here? And it's, let's see. Does a single district court judge who likely lacks jurisdiction have unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever $2 billion taxpayer dollars? The answer to that should be an emphatic no. But a majority of this court thinks otherwise. And this is, people are just absolutely stunned that this is being said here. I am stunned, Alito writes, because how did the court, if Barrett is a constitutionalist judge, as somebody said in our chat room, that'd be Steph, how can she think and how can she set precedent now that a lower court judge can tell the executive? Now, remember, it goes both ways. So if President AOC wants to do something like this, she will now be restricted because of this precedent. Now, she probably won't listen because Democrats don't listen to the SCOTUS, much like when Joe Biden continued to do student loan debt when SCOTUS ordered him to stop. But this idea that she is going to step in there, and I kind of agree with Steph. I don't know if ACB was given the job by Trump. I don't know if she likes him. I wouldn't be shocked if she doesn't like Trump. People were trying to highlight videos of her looking at Trump at the State of the Union in some kind of mean way or whatever the case may be. Now, as far as this question, does this mean that Trump only has to pay out the money that was already spent by the NGOs, or does he have to keep the pipes flowing until it goes to trial? I don't, let's see if the NPR article tells us anything. Excuse me. I'm sorry. U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday reined in some of the Trump administration's sweeping effort in a 5-4 vote. The justices left in place a lower court order that so far has only required the Trump administration to pay contractors for foreign aid work that has already been completed. So that's the answer, Crotchety. Any work that's been done, they have to be paid for. Nothing future, no future contracts that are being done there. So if that answers your question, I hope it does. The idea that if you've done work, you're going to get paid for it. But if not, any project that was completed, it says it right here. You have to pay contractors for foreign aid work that have already been completed. So if it's been completed, you have to get paid. If it's not been completed, then you don't have to as well. So that's what the look at was. Yeah. All right. So very interesting to see that Amy Coney Barrett is kind of making this decision for Trump and kind of a slap in the face to Trump. I don't know how this works going forward, but it's very interesting in that regard that the one person that stops Trump's momentum with USAID is a supposed Republican that he put in place. Now that is ironic. If you think, I guarantee you now, when Trump will get at least one SCOTUS nominee in these 4 years. He ain't picking a woman. He ain't picking a woman. I absolutely guarantee you he's not picking a woman for the next SCOTUS. he will put Ted Cruz on the court before he puts anybody else. But interestingly enough, that's what's going on there. And yeah. All right. This is Rickcast. I'm the aforementioned Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you like what we're doing on the show. Not last story. Let's see. Next story up from neemlab.org. 538, the popular website that I have used in the past that, tracks and polls the presidential market, is shutting down as part of a broader cut at ABC and Disney. So we'll see how that goes. Disney is cutting 200 positions across ABC and Disney Entertainment, including shutting down 538, the Wall Street Journal reported on Tuesday night. ABC News magazine shows 2020 and Nightline are consolidating into one unit, resulting in job cuts. The People said ABC is also eliminating the political and data-driven news site 538, which had 15 employees. 2023, this website wrote about the rise and fall of 538, which had already been operating in a diminished form since 2023 when founder Nate Silver left ABC. So, of course, you guys can read all that if you'd like. When Silver left ABC, he took his models with him and now runs them from his own Substack, Silver Bulletin, which 538 ran its own forecast for the 2028 election under G. Elliott Morris, who previously had been a data journalist for The Economist. The site maintained a presidential approval tracker and other useful polling averages. It's unclear what will happen to those once the site is down. So it was 538 used to be run by Nate Silver. Nate Silver is then approached by ABC to buy the 538 website and integrate it into ABC News as their own kind of little forecast tracker and model. And of course, pretty much like everything else that the Disney Corporation, because Disney owns ABC, ESPN, Marvel, Star Wars, everything else it owns, it just drives it into the ground and destroys it. It just drives it into the ground and destroyed it. And so that's it's not a shock that ABC had a because the model Silver, he's not perfect. And a lot of the stuff he tries to talk about doesn't really work well, but he was at least respected somewhat, and it gave a little bit more credence to the 538 or to ABC's polling division. So outside of that, once that went away, it kind of just became like another forecast site. So they took this diamond or something that was looked at very well and completely sank it. And it's another case of Disney going down the tubes. And it's one of these things that shouldn't shock you because all these mega corporations, they buy them and then they just kind of toss them aside. For the last year's elections, 538's publicly available database or a major data source for the New York Times and other news outlets that reported on the election or crunched the numbers, including Silver Bulletin. Basically, our process was to ingest their data and then make various additions, subtractions, and so forth. Let's see here. Yep, all the other journalists were really sad about this. This guy, Walter Hickley, I don't know who that is. ABC completely blew it. Absolute fumble. Feels like they've been the end of an era for most of an era, but this is kind of devastating anyway. And then, of course, you see all these other people. Of course, there's Brian Selter, whatever. Journalists are sad that other journalists are losing their jobs, but it is an aftermath of the Trump win because 538 and other places were telling you Kamala had a shot. They were telling you, hey, the data's in. She's in striking distance. Don't worry about it. We think it's going to be close. It's going to be right up to the time. There's some polls that have Kamala ahead in like places like Iowa and all these other places. And then it came out and Trump, it was called by 11 o'clock on election night, which is a lot sooner than most of us thought it was going to be. So, pour one out for the 538 homies. And sorry to see you go. This is Rickcast. I am Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell to continue this show and help it grow or to be notified when a show goes live. All right, let's get to our last story of the night, and that is the aforementioned Disney production of Daredevil. So, Daredevil, I have a 35-minute review because I did episodes 1 and 2 on the channel. If you actually want to watch it, I go into detail on what I think the episodes look like, the formats, how do they compare to the Netflix shows, and so forth. To give you a brief rundown on this, the show had one big question it needed to answer going from Netflix to Disney Plus, which was, are they going to be able to continue the tone that the Netflix shows had its own tone and tenor and all these other kinds of things. And I will tell you that they are trying. It's not the same as the Netflix shows. I don't think Disney is capable of doing anything that would show a gritty or dirty way of doing things. Disney has a very clean productions, the way they do their products, there's a sheen over it that just kind of makes it shiny, that they just can't get rid of. And they definitely have problems with some of their CGI. That is evidence in the first 15 minutes. But overall, the story still works. You could go from the first 3 seasons of Daredevil on Netflix, and you would say, okay, it's a little different, but it still fits. The bones of it are still there, and it works. Now, I don't want to get into spoilers or too many plot details, because like I said, I did a review online, and if you're interested in it, you would go check that out. Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox are the reason to watch this show. They're absolutely fantastic. They really are. And I obviously, you don't have Disney Plus, so you don't have to really worry about it. But I can tell you safely that so far, it seems to have delivered. Now, I will make this point because I'm a practicing Catholic, at least I try to be, that Netflix did a better job, at least so far, integrating Catholicism into the Daredevil story. Now, imagine that. The studio that was behind Cuties and Big Mouth and a lot of other degeneracy was better at incorporating Catholicism into the Daredevil storyline than it looks like Disney is going to be able to. There's some slight mentions to it in some dialogue, and then he walks by a church. There's not much else there. The reason why I say this is the first scene of the first season. The first scene, he's in a confessional, and he spends a lot of time throughout the 3 seasons on the Netflix series hanging out with his parish priest. And he talks to him and he gets advice. He goes to confession. I don't think we're going to get that in this, because I think Disney just cannot give Catholicism a fair shake. I just don't think they can. And I don't believe they're able to do so. I think it is within their DNA to just not highlight Catholicism. So there's this season with 9 episodes, crotchety, and they've already greenlit a second season, which I think is going to be another 9 episodes. So there's going to be 2 seasons of this. Now, I guarantee you, as soon as this one ends in April, I'm canceling Disney Plus, and I won't sign up for it again until next year, when the next season of Daredevil comes out, because I'm not giving them money outside of the times I need to. But the Catholicism is not highlighted. It is not integrated the way it needs to be. It's more passing. And to me, I just don't think that really works within the Daredevil storyline, and it doesn't really help. It was done much better on Netflix, which is saying something. Overall, positive. I'm a pass-fail kind of guy. It passes. Both episodes pass. The best scene out of both. So he's born again, so he's not Catholic anymore. Yeah, I get it. He's a Seventh-day Adventist now. But the best scene in either one is, and it was shown in one of the trailers, is the heat scene, where Charlie Cox sits across the diner from Vincent D'Onofrio, and they talk for, I think, 10 minutes. No action, no nothing. But if you've watched the other seasons of Daredevil and you've seen it leading up to it, there's so much weight to it, and it's really well done. It's well acted, and I think it was the best. It was the highlight of it. So pass for both episodes. We'll see where it goes. I hear from other people that have seen all 9 that it's amazing, but I will give you the reviews as they come out every Wednesday. I liked it. I'm sorry. I know it's very 2000s. I think Ben Affleck did everything he could with that. There was a problem with the film as far as they wanted it to be more like Spider-Man and not its own thing. This was back before comic books were able to have their own identity, and they just had to like copy whatever X-Men was doing, because X-Men came out and made a bunch of money. So they're like, all right, he's a blind guy, but like X-Men, right? You're going to make it like the X-Men movie. And, Elektra was terrible. Jennifer Gardner is not Elektra Nachios, but you're going to do what you're going to do. Colin Farrell is psychotically amazing as Bullseye, because he's like, I'm getting paid for this movie and I don't care, so I'm just going to do whatever I want, and it really worked. And what's the guy's name who played Michael Clark Duncan? How can you hate Michael Clark Duncan as the Kingpin? He was perfectly class. He's the only time where characters like race based or race swapped or whatever, I didn't even care. I'm like, he physically fits being the Kingpin, so he was perfect. And I think he was yeah, Michael Clark Duncan died, unfortunately. You know, eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord, and the perpetual light shine upon him. But he was fantastic. If he was alive today, I would have pushed to have him be Kingpin, because I think he was so just good at it. And the reason they cast him is because it's like, he's the size of a guy named Kingpin. He's just like a huge, massive man that could kill you with his hands. And that really did work. So, Daredevil 2003 passes. I bought the soundtrack. I was into Evanescence. What can I say? It was 20 years ago. Over 23 years ago. 22 years ago. Shoosh. Anyway. All right, folks. That's it for tonight's episode. I hope everybody had a wonderful Ash Wednesday if you are a Catholic and you begin your Lenten season. I will talk to y'all tomorrow. And I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell to continue to help this show grow and go live. Make sure you spread it as best you can. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for spending your Wednesday night with me. Rick Barrett here on Rickcast. God bless. And until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.